Okay, so Rowan Atkinson, you know him, Mr Bean, etc, etc, etc. Blackadder, which is where about 90% of my humorous material came from, as I found out when I watched the reruns years later. Rowan Atkinson apparently had a stutter, and the thing I heard is that he used to over-articulate, so he moves his mouth a lot so that he did not stutter. Apparently, that was a purposeful thing that helped him. So I've gone to AI and see what AI has to say about it. Did Rowan Atkinson over-articulate to manage his stutter? And it comes back, yes. Rowan Atkinson, famous for his role as Mr Bean, has spoken about how he used over-articulation as a technique to manage his stutter. In interviews, he's mentioned that he struggled with stuttering as a child, and it led him to become more aware of how he formed words, which is what I was talking about in another video, which is usually, or has been for me, not a good thing, because it means that I've been trying too hard. I've been trying to work out how to form the words rather than just speaking, because I find when I don't focus on how to form the words, my speaking just works. Anyway, he said that he became more aware of how he formed words and used his mouth while speaking. To cope with his stutter, Atkinson intentionally slowed down his speech and over-articulated his words, focusing on clear, precise pronunciation.
What? I'm the mime. Well, why don't you say so? Right, get on with the mime.
I am a mime. My body is my tool.
This helped him avoid stumbling over words and gain him more control over his speech. Over time, it became a kind of habit that also contributed to his comedic timing and style, especially in his physical comedy. So yes, over-articulation was a way for him to manage his speech and stutter, and it eventually became a distinctive feature of his performance.
Welcome to the National Theatre for this, the third in our series of informal conversations with major performers. It has been a very exciting season so far, which has encompassed such performing giants as Sir Ian McKellen, Dame Judi Dench, and of course, Christopher Biggins.
So I said, why would this have worked for him? And it came back. Over-articulation likely worked for Rowan Atkinson in managing his stutter because it gave him more control over his speech, which is key for people who stutter. Here's why it would have been effective. Number one, slower speech pace. By over-articulating, Atkinson slowed down his speech. Stuttering often happens when someone feels rushed or anxious about speaking. Slowing down gives more time for the brain to organize words and for the mouth to form them clearly. Makes sense? Number two, increased focus on mouth movements. Now, this is one of the reasons why it supposedly works. Over-articulation requires careful attention to how the tongue, lips, and jaw move. This extra focus helped Atkinson become more aware of his speech mechanics, reducing the chances of getting stuck on certain sounds or syllables, which is common in stuttering. Interesting. We might come back to that. Number three, clearer speech. By deliberately pronouncing each word more clearly, Atkinson made sure he was articulating all the sounds. This could reduce the frustration or anxiety that comes with the block of a stutter, since the speech was more precise and less prone to mistakes. Number four, less pressure to speak quickly. Stutterers often feel the pressure to speak quickly or catch up, which can trigger a block. Over-articulation helps them avoid that, as the slower pace allows more time to think and plan what to say next. I don't know that I do plan next. Of course, we are supposed to formulate on the Maguire program, and we'll get to that on a future video. And I have done that in certain ways, but I wonder if I do it differently. We'll come to that. And lastly, number 5, improved confidence. As he gained more control over his speech, his confidence likely grew. The more he practiced this method, the easier it would have become, leading to less stress about stuttering in general. Over time, I wonder if anybody else has tried over-articulation like Rowan Atkinson. Have you? It said over time, this could have made stuttering less of an issue for him. So in short, over-articulating worked for Atkinson because it gave him a structured way to control his speech, avoid blocks, and build confidence. All things that help manage stuttering, Baldrick. Plus, it ended up becoming part of his unique comedic style, so it's done him pretty well. Until next time, bye for now. So just as an addendum to this conversation about Rowan Atkinson, I wondered whether it could be that some people use their mouth in the wrong way, which has led to tension and frustration, or poor sounding speech, and that's resulted in a stutter. And whether Rowan Atkinson did something along these lines. Do we know enough about it? And it said it's possible that for some people who stutter, tension and frustration in their speech muscles, including the tongue, mouth and jaw, contribute to the stutter. When someone stutters, there can be an unconscious build-up of tension in the speech muscles. This tension might make it harder to articulate words smoothly, leading to blocks or repetitions. This could be for several reasons. Muscle tension. If the tongue, jaw, or lips are tense or not coordinated, it can cause disruptions in speech flow. This can result in frustration, especially if the person feels, I'm a lot of fumbling a lot today. If the person feels they are unable to get the words out correctly. Number 2, speech patterns. Some people might develop unproductive speech patterns where they rush through or avoid certain sounds, which creates more tension and increases the likelihood of a block. Over time, this pattern becomes more ingrained, making the stutter more persistent. Number 3, psychological factors. Anxiety about stuttering or fear of judgment can add more mental and physical tension. This emotional stress can worsen the physical aspects of speech production, creating a cycle of tension and frustration. Yes, I can remember the days. Did Rowan Atkinson's method help this? Well, yes, in a way. His over-articulating likely helped to break that cycle of tension and frustration. Here's how his approach might have worked. He reduced tension by focusing on clearly and deliberately articulating each word. Atkinson may have found a way to ease muscle tension. Over-articulation requires a deliberate, controlled way of speaking that might have helped relax the muscles in his mouth and jaw. Improved coordination by slowing down and focusing on each sound. I like this one. Atkinson would have built a better coordination between his breath, vocal cords, and articulators, which are mouth, tongue, and lips, which likely helped him overcome the feeling of being blocked. Now, that's a really interesting one because it's like how you slow down an athletic movement, such as shot put, slow it down, and you learn each part and where you are supposed to be at each point. Because if you do it fast, it's kind of too hard to coordinate, particularly if you're learning some change in what you're doing. So yeah, that's a very interesting one. Learn to walk before we can run. Confidence boost, the act of consciously controlling his speech and slowing things down likely helped him feel more in control, reducing anxiety and tension, which could otherwise lead to frustration or stuttering.